we don't need buttons to get off the board. It's not a skating game if I can get off the board.
Sounds like you don't like Warhammer 40K. Well, considering I've never played the game, I know what Warhammer is. But I've spent most of that budget that I could have ever bought into an army for Warhammer. I spent in Magic. Still playing Magic. Still go to the card shops. And yes, they sell Warhammer stuff there. They still sell... Yeah, Jace, so if you remember, DCG...
No, you see, what you're trying to argue is that complication makes something better for the sake of being complicated. What I'm saying is that not everything needs to be. I'm not saying Mortal Kombat doesn't need a block button, and I'm not saying that some games don't require every controller. What I'm saying is developers are utilizing all of that just because everybody else is.
Right.
That's what I have a problem with. If you're going to play a strategy game that's complex, you go into probably Warhammer knowing it's complex.
Hold up.
You know Warhammer's going to be complex
So,
going
Jace,
into it.
If everything needs a block button, how do you feel about Tekken getting a block button? We need more dive kick. Yeah.
That's too much.
Yeah, a block button in Tekken would be fucking, like, no. I don't want that.
Look at this guy.
You're trying to pop the balloons?
Yep.
So it's an adaptation of Pong, okay.
And it's I'd say 50% because I'm old, and 50% because I own so many fucking goddamn games that because they all use it, if I don't play it on a regular basis, I gotta spend an hour remembering what the fucking buttons are. It's why I think all role-playing games, just like they have it in Dragon Quest XI, they have a recap. So as soon as you load, it has a story recap that plays. You can skip it, but then you're like, oh, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. Because what if you took a break from the game?
Right.
And do you want to dive through a bunch of menus and read a bunch of crap? No. You want to get into the game. Maybe you only got like an hour to pop in. Baldur's Gate.
Actually, that was one of my biggest arguments against Divinity Original Sin 2. Is because before they updated it, of like all you were given was this obscure notes as to what was actually going on in the game.
Yeah. But are they doing that for a storytelling device, or are they doing that because they're lazy?
I think a little bit of both.
Because there's something to be said for games like Myst, where they give you no story and you uncover the story as you go, because that's part of the game. But what I'm saying is if you have like Xenosaga Trilogy, where they have 3-hour freaking cutscenes, and then you don't play the game for like 2 months, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I have no idea what the hell is going on. That happened. I took just a couple of
5:30.
weeks. I took a couple week break from Final Fantasy 16, and I was in the middle of some side mission, and I'm like, I don't even know where I was. So I only had like an hour and a half to play before I was like, I'll pop it in, play it like an hour and a half before I go to sleep, right? And I spent that time trying to figure out where the fuck I was and why the fuck I was there. But if it had a recap,
right,
I would have known. Now,
that's what I'm saying about Divinity Original Sin 2, is the fact of like, if you lost certain character's name, it didn't give you that.
Yeah.
So you couldn't even go back and talk to the characters if you forgot of like who you were talking to. You couldn't even go back and talk to who initially gave you the message. So there would be no real way for you to determine as to what was going on. Then they fixed it, but it was still pretty cryptic. That was one of my biggest complaints is, yes, I do believe you should dumb it down. I believe every game should dumb it down to where, like, if you took, let's say you haven't touched the game in 6 months, but you want to finish the game, and you don't remember all the characters, it should tell you, go here, do this. I do believe that. I do believe that.
I mean, modern games are starting to get better because even with fighting games, they do have options for people to have more simplified controls.
Right. Which I'm okay with.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. I'm just for me, I'm saying justify your use of the fact that Halo's been around for 20 years and didn't use every single button, and it's fundamentally the same game. Why did you add all these additional buttons that no one's using?
I like Jace on this. Hot take. Hear him out. Take time off work, kick her out with your family, and spend a week gaming. Just a thought. I do agree with that. Spend all of your time, every waking moment, into nothing but gaming.
But it has to be just that game. Because if you played a different game every hour, you're going to be in the same thing where, like, I have no idea what the hell I was doing. There's so many games on this back wall that I've not beaten because I didn't want to start over. I did do the work to get to wherever I was at. But I'm like, I have no idea, or I'm like at a really difficult, like Devil May Cry Fry. I'm like 75% through the game, but I'm at this impossible boss where I can't spend the time to reorient myself with the controls. I'm just thrown into this massive boss fight. And I'm like, I need an option where I can just back out of that boss fight because Devil May Cry is a twitchy action game.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of buttons. So I need to go and just be able to practice that. Yeah, and I'm sure I'm sure that you probably have a bunch of different ways for you to know, like in your books and shit, to figure out where the fuck what you're doing.
Right.
But you even were saying that there's so many side quests and shit. It's easy to get lost in what the hell it is that you're doing.
And that's Larian Studios for you. Of like, they put so much content in their RPGs, which, good for them. That actually makes it a better RPG, in my opinion. I think it's a game that's too short, that's not as complex as some of these older generation RPGs were. They just couldn't make as much content. I mean, what you were putting on CDs, and they only had so much space that they could actually write it on.
Yeah, but that's 90 hours is a high amount for even role-playing games now. Even a strategy game like Three Houses doesn't run that.
Right.
That's on the high end. But do you want to play Final Fantasy VI and think that you can beat it under 60 hours on a Super Nintendo? Those games were long, and you could play like the Eye of the Beholder is like 75 hours and it's on Sega CD. They made games long then. What they're doing now is they're making every game an open world 90-hour game. And
Yeah.
not every game needs it.
No, I agree with that.
Game based on Dungeons and Dragons that's so much lore that is so dense requires that. Something like, I've been playing Starfield on and off. Obviously, you've got all these different planets and stuff. Obviously, there's like hundreds of hours of gameplay. That makes sense. But would you need a 90-hour Mario game? No.
No. God, no.
But some people are making games like that where it's just unnecessary because they're trying to be like, oh, look at how much content we put in. And here's the thing. If all that content is good and it's 4 hours long, people are not going to fucking complain. If your game is garbage and it's 300 hours, people are going to complain. It has to still be quality content. And that's one thing that I get from music. He plays these short games, but they're really good there's no filler, there's nothing else. It's 7 solid hours of great gameplay.
Jace is saying we need a 100-hour Mario game.
You can. It's called Mario 64. If you try to get all of the fucking stars, you'll spend 100 hours doing that for sure. I'm sure I spent more than 100 hours on that.
Yo, Jace, there's people like it's not gonna matter. People like Keith out there that no life games anyway, and they need that. They need that in their life. I don't think people who play Mario no life that game.
Do you see how many people were following? No, have you seen how many people were following that are like play Mario?
The speed runs and
they're not doing speed runs. They're doing Mario Maker.
Oh,
Mario Maker is more than 100-hour. We did. Jace, it does exist. It's called Mario Maker 2.
We solved it.
Yep. Yeah, because those people are trying to beat these insane levels that either they made because you have to beat it before you can upload it, or ones that other people made. And I was like really into trying to do that, but it's the same thing. that reason why I can never get to a certain level, with fighting games, is because I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a little break from Mario Maker, and I come back and all the levels have gone up like 9 difficulties in that like 2-week break.
That's how I remember Sackboy, Little Big Planet.
I think things are switched. We should have had 500-hour games when we were a kid because there was less games to play in general. They were short. Like, you could beat Mega Man 2 even without speedrunning in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It was only hard. It was only long because it was hard. And you died all the time. But there's just, I'm like, I want to play.
Come on.
Like, I need to finish.
So sensitive.
I need to finish Starfield. I need to finish Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and I haven't even, that's why I told you, I haven't even bought Baldur's Gate 3, because I already have 2, like, almost triple-digit RPGs.
This game's frustrating me.
If I get another triple-digit RPG, my head's gonna explode.
Yeah.
It's gonna be too many.
Oof.
You have to...
I know. I see you playing the game. That doesn't mean that I'm as successful. No.
Well, I used to sit late at night while you guys were doing whatever, and I just sit and play these type of things because they're just really fast, and it's like, oh, I'm trash, but I can move this trackball. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just something like simple to do.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
Oh,
Fresca. That's who we need to sponsor us. We need Fresca.
is Fresca still around?
I don't even know. I haven't seen that shit in a while.
But I just think in general, we as human beings, for the most part, we see less commercials. So, like, and if most of the ads we see are online now, right?
Yeah,
So, like,
most
unless
people
you're
skip that
like,
shit.
yeah, and unless you're like purposely trying to get like Fresca, like you're like, oh, is Fresca a thing? Like, if you look that up on your phone right now, I'm sure you'll see a lot of Fresca commercials after that.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
What did you get on this?
520.
This started as a 100-hour RPG.
Then they reduced it. Then they had to do. The investors weren't happy about it, so they cut the funding for it. And
This was the original Baldur's Gate, guys, but they took the license away, and then this is all he was stuck with.
those two butterfingers on
All
that
right,
one.
last one before we move on to what's it? But I think to finish that, I think that things are offsetting, and that's why we're getting all these games now that have all these accessibility options.
Right.
Is because developers assumed that everybody wanted games like Dark Souls, and every game had to be a Dark Souls type of game, and that's not true. And it's the same thing with complication. Not every game needs to be, like the perfect example of that. So progressively over the years, Assassin's Creed games have become these epic 200-hour RPGs, which is not what Assassin's Creed is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why Mirage and the newer ones are going back to like 12, 15 hours. You're actually being an assassin. Imagine that. In Assassin's Creed, you can be an assassin. Because it's this thing where every game needs to be an open world RPG.
Right.
And that's not...
And it's not Assassin's Creed.
Some things need to be small and contained because it fits better. And there's all these clones that we get, especially like when Breath of the Wild came out. How many games tried to be the new Breath of the Wild before Tears of Kingdom came out? They always had to have these big, look at all these different things you can do in the open world. Like the last two God of War games are great, but they're also like these like 40-hour games, and to me that's not God of War. God of War is more, it's high impact 12-15-hour game. Super epic. It shouldn't have a bunch of middle time where I'm just wandering around on a sailboat. That doesn't feel like God of War to me.
No,
The Kratos, the sailing years.
at least give us more cinematics, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Those
I beat my
games
high
are
score.
great. It's just, I just think that
I beat my high score.
870. And those games are great. I just feel that there is definitely the need for this to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to make these big open world games.